Hi, my name's Amanda Santerre. I am a printmaker and an artist, and I live in Worcester. I am excited to do this project with you guys, but first I will tell you a little bit about myself. I went to school at Rhode Island College, which is not an art school, but I went for art, and I went for photography and graphic design. So I clearly don't do any of those things nowadays, but I ended up in printmaking. So I will tell you how I got there. I lost a lot of my photos, so I kind of felt a little bit defeated, which happens, it's part of the process. So if you're ever feeling defeated about your art, just know that we all feel that way. And so I worked a lot of different part-time jobs, not art related, after college. And after a whole bunch of different trial and error jobs, working at supermarkets and restaurants and all that stuff, I found CC Lowell, which is the art store here in the city. Super old, since 1852, we're the oldest art store in the country. I applied here and I started working as just a regular staff member, and then I got asked if I wanted to be the manager. So that's what I do now, and that's my career. So I am putting my art degree to use. I just had a roundabout way of doing it. So there's no right or wrong. So when I started here, getting used to talking to customers about different art supplies every day, whether I use them or not, has been a really invaluable part of the process. So I have learned a lot as an artist, and it's also made me curious about exploring a lot of different art, because it's impossible to talk to so many different artists today and not get inspired by what they're doing. Both adults and kids and everything. Like, I meet so many cool people every day, so it's very inspiring. So over the course of the years, I've tried out different things, and I've come to find out that I really love all different kinds of media, like painting and printmaking and all this stuff, because I've tried it out, because it's helpful to be able to talk to people about what they're asking me questions about in my job. But in the process, I found out that I was really, really curious about printmaking. And printmaking involves, there's so many different things that are defined as printmaking. I do something that's called relief printmaking, or block printing, or lino cut, you might hear it called. I will, in the next video, I'll get into sort of different ways that you can do that, because we're going to go through a project about that. So some of what I do, I do a lot of different things, but mostly I do linoleum cut. So this is something I've made. So this is a print of yarrow, and I did it on something called linoleum block. So you might have heard of linoleum as a home improvement item, but it's actually an art material as well. So they come on these blocks, and this is just a composite material, and this top material is actual linoleum. So it looks, it's pretty hard, but it carves and it keeps detail really, really well. So that's what this is. So you can see really closely, mind my nails, but the hands for comparison. The little flowers are super tiny, and the leaves have tiny details, and that is what drew me to linoleum, because it keeps that tiny detail when you're carving. So in carving this, you ink the plate, which again, next video. And it creates, you can make a print from it. You can make endless prints from it, as long as it doesn't break, which it shouldn't. So this is the print that came from it, using just black ink and paper. I don't have the blocks to show you for these other ones, but here's just a couple other examples. I like working in this really tiny size. I like small details. So this little tiny guy is a little oak leaf. Been doing a lot of circular prints lately. So this is a sunflower I've done, again, with lots of tiny details. And then this holiday season, I did these Christmas wreaths, which I can safely say was the most painstaking thing I've carved to date, because it took forever. Most of what I do subject matter wise is plants, plants and botanicals, sometimes insects, or occasionally animals, but a lot of what inspires me is honestly natural history exhibits. You know, like the old-timey, when we were still discovering all these plants and animals, you know, and people would collect them and scientifically observe them, or, you know, like preserve them. So like where you know, like dry the plants and you sort of study them, or you know, observe them in their natural habitat. And, you know, just over time, you know, in like not that big of a span of time, we've learned so much about the world around us. So that is what inspires me. And I think it's really fascinating that there's so many different aspects to plants and the natural world. And there's so many of them, like how could I ever run out of things to print, really? So, you know, so that's been a really interesting thing to me. And I've always been really interested in that, no matter what medium I'm working with, be it watercolor, acrylic paints. When I did photography, it was still very much about, you know, plants in the natural world around me. And also the other reason I feel really inspired about that is I haven't traveled a lot. I haven't gotten to, you know, like I haven't had the means to really go a lot of places. So when I was doing my art in school, I had to make do with what was around me. And so I kind of found ways to make what was around me really magical and interesting. So it helped to, you know, like make do with what I had and, you know, continue creating and being inspired. And it led to this, you know, big passion I have for tiny details around me. So it's been really helpful, and it's been an interesting process. There are a lot of artists who inspire me, but I think, you know, I am very inspired by artists, but what inspires me the most is really just, like I said, like what's around me. At this point, I've been, you know, focusing on that for so many years that like taking a walk will freshly like rejuvenate my ideas. So if I like go for a hike in the woods or something, I'm gonna find a billion things that I'm like, I'm really curious, what is that plant? I'm also a huge nerd about it, so I just like learning about them in general while I'm printing about them. So I have a ton of tiny little dumb facts about plants if you ever want them. And as far as, you know, my art goes, I also, so in addition to being the manager here at Lowell, which is where I'm filming, I also run my own art business. So I create prints and I sell them at markets. You know, we actually host them here at Lowell. This will be the second year I'm running them, but I also participate in other people's markets that they run. And you know, it's kind of like learning how, it's a really good way to learn how to be a business person about your own art, because you have to, you know, you have to set up your table and you have to create enough pieces of art to sell, and you have to, you know, put out social media about them. And it's from, you know, from like the ground to the top, you got to kind of do the whole thing yourself. And it's a really, you know, I've been doing it for 4 years, and every year I learn more and more about it. But I would say it's really valuable because it's taught me a lot. It's given me a lot of confidence about my art, but it's also let me get in front of people and talk about the process, just like I'm doing with all of you. And it's been great to sort of know that I'm supporting myself by doing something that I love doing, because it really never feels like work, honestly. Like I go home after this job and I work on art, and it's great. Even in, you know, like the holiday seasons when people are looking for handmade gifts, you know, it gets really crazy and busy when you're someone who makes their own art, but it's really, really fun too. So it never really feels like it's, you know, like I'm never like, oh, I don't want to do that, you know, and I think that's really important to like what you do. So I'm self-taught with block printing, and in this next video, I'm going to show you how you can get started doing it too. So let's go. All right, so in this video, I'm going to teach you how to do some printmaking with a little kit that you were given by Arts Worcester. So in that kit, you have several materials. So you have these little foam square pieces, and the little foam pieces are what this is gonna be the equivalent to the linoleum that I talked about in your other video. So this is kind of like step one. you know, to learning, you know, sort of just like how to do it and being able to experiment really cheaply. This is pretty cheap too. And I just, in between this, just a quick side note, there's something called a speedy carve block, which is a carving rubber. So if you do really like this project and you want to kind of take it to the next step, a rubber exists in between the two that you can try out too. But so in your kits, you've got little foam squares. So those will be your printmaking plate. To make marks on those, you have these little tools here. So you were given these because there's a lot of different little marks you can make with these, but I'm going to show you some other things you can use as well. There you'll have a little cup of black printmaking ink, and that's going to be a type of ink that we'll use to make a print. You should also have a couple sheets of this square paper, which is slightly larger than the foam blocks. This is what your print's going to end up on. You're going to have also some shared brayers, and a brayer is basically a roller. So it looks like this. Yours will be a little bit bigger than mine, but it's just you roll this with your ink. So, and that's what goes on. You might also have a foam brush. Some of you have different materials. So this foam brush is going to be the replacement for that also. So first things first, there's a lot of different ways that you can use this little tool here to make different marks. So something important is that whatever you press in, you don't need to press super hard into the foam, but whenever you press into the foam, whatever is indented is going to stay the color of your paper. In this case, it'll be white. Everything else that we put the ink on is going to be black, kind of like this. So this little sheet I made here is to kind of show you some of the examples of marks that you can make with the little wooden tool. So this mark here on the end is made by, dragging this along. And then these little ones are this little teeny tiny edge. It's just kind of stamped into the foam a bunch. There's some drag marks in there. This thin one on the edge is from using the actual pointed tip, which I think a lot of you will probably end up using that the most, but experiment with it. So you have a couple pieces of foam. So I would really recommend, like taking one of your pieces of foam or even the backside, because you can use both sides of this to make prints. So you have a little more than you think. But I would recommend taking one side of it and just practicing making marks and seeing how they look so that you can create something, which is going to be part of the prompt that I give you. So the next step, once you kind of figure that out, is to just make some prints. So like make some plates. And so I'm going to show you what I made with mine. So I made these little daisies. They're kind of quick little daisies, and the way I made them is all of these lines here are made using the thin edge of this, and then I use this top sort of edge here, just this, not the super short one, but this middle one, to just stamp around in a circle to make daisies. The little teeny tiny butterfly on the edge here is made by poking this in to make little dots. So truly there's so much you can do by using just this little wood tool. Let's see, so once you have that finished, we're gonna put the ink on the plate. So you can use anything you want to get the ink out of the container. If this is clean, you can use that, but you're gonna have to make sure this is dry before you use it again. You're gonna put your ink on a plate. You can use a paper plate, you can use a piece of cardboard, use whatever you want. Just like anything flat. And then you're gonna use either your foam brush or your brayer, and you're gonna roll your ink out. So I put my little ink in a blob over here, and you're gonna roll this on here, and that's gonna make it, you should hear this noise. That's a good noise for your consistency of your printmaking ink. So you really don't need a lot. And I am a major culprit of this. I often put out more ink than I need. So I'm gonna tell you, it's less ink than you think. It's just a little bit. And you want it to be nice and smooth on your plate. And once you have that, you're going to roll it onto your finished image. So my daisies that I did, you're going to roll it onto here, and you want to have a super light hand and roll it. And you may need to go back into your plate and get more ink in the process. It's entirely possible that you might not have enough depending on the size of your brayer. Sometimes it doesn't pick up enough ink. So once you have that on there, you're going to have a inky little plate like this. And if any ink gets in these white spaces and you really don't want it to be, you can take like a little Q-tip or something and just wipe that area out to make it a little bit crisper. You're going to put your plate down flat on a table. Then you're going to take your paper, put it down flat on top of it, and then you're just going to use your hand really gently to rub on top of it. And don't press too hard, because if you press really hard, because this is a styrofoam plate, it could take your image out a little bit, and make it all, mucky. So you want to just press lightly and go over it until you feel like you've gotten good coverage on it. Then you're going to peel up your piece, and it should look something like this. So you might have to do a couple runs. So sometimes, the first one that you print is sometimes, comes out not quite right, and everyone's going to feel differently. So you might want yours to be super dark in all the areas that you wanted it to be dark. Sometimes they come out like this, and that's really nice. Like, I personally like this print like that, but it's entirely up to you. Very much up to you how you do it. You can also, so there's a lot of different ways that you can go in and add to these, which is something called hand embellished prints, which I encourage you all to try out too. So you can make a bunch of little copies of your print and try out some different things with any materials you have. So you can use marker on it, you can use paints, watercolors. This paper will hold up to some watercolor if you have it. Anything you want. You can even just take another black pen or a pencil and just create patterns within it. And there's lots of fun things. So these are all going to have a little white border around it, which is, I think, just makes it look a little bit crisp and nice and presentable. So this is great. After you've played around with this and you've tried out different materials and, you've played around with the mark making techniques and everything, you should have a little postcard in your kit too, which I forgot to mention earlier. So my hope for you is to take that postcard, make a print, and mail it to a friend. So you can write whatever you want in the back. Write a little note about, this art, how you're doing, how your week went, anything you want, and just send it to someone, because I guarantee you it will brighten someone's day. And it's always fun to get snail mail. So that's what the postcard is for. And then you should, try different techniques. And some other things that I'm going to talk about here before we go are just that you have a lot of different options. So I know we only gave you this little wooden piece here to make marks with, but I would encourage you to use some of the backs of your pieces or other pieces that you might have left over, and try out different things in your home. So you can use ballpoint pens are really great on this material. It doesn't matter if they make a pen line, it's not going to transfer to your final print. Pens work great. Clay tools, if you work with any clay like Sculpey or modeling clay, the little clay tools for that are fantastic for making a lot of different marks in there. You can even try, if you have something like I have this ring, right? So you can even press that into there and make an imprint of that. You can really make imprints of a lot of different things with this. And additionally, if you really like using this foam, this is a super thin foam, but you can actually go to the grocery store and ask in the meat department, you can ask for some clean trays. And that foam is similar to this, it's just a thicker foam. So you can even, get this material for free to continue doing this if you want. So it's super accessible, and I recommend, just trying different things out and seeing how you like it. And there's other colors of ink out there. We gave you black, but there are other inks. You can even try it. You can try it with like the craft paints you get, at the store. You can get little bottles of craft paint and acrylic, and you can use that as an ink too. It works pretty well with this material. And then that's really it. The last thing is cleanup. So you're gonna wanna make sure that if you wanna use your little print plate again, once it looks like this and it's a mess, this is a water-based ink. So you're gonna wanna just take it to the sink and just lightly run it under some warm water with dish soap or hand soap until it comes fairly clean. They never come all the way clean. You can even see on my linoleum blocks, I scrub these and they still, like, they'll always be stained, but as long as the ink is out of the little crevices that, you know, or any of the little marks you made, you should be just fine. Just make sure that you get it as clean as you can and let it dry out, like on a paper towel or a face cloth or something like that. Just let it air dry so that you can use it again. And that is really it. So have the best time making your project, and I can't wait to see what you come up with. And, you know, if you feel up to it, like, and you come in the store, like, please show me and let me know, because I'm really excited to see what you guys make. Thank you.